She arrived at the castle believing herself to be just another servant, destined to clean shadowy halls and serve in silence. He saw her and felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. The call of royal blood, the mark of the queen he had sworn to protect, now trapped in a frail mortal human body. Fate mocked them both. She didn't know who she truly was, and he knew that loving her could kill her. It was Winter's Eve when Alina stepped through the iron gate of the ancestral castle. The metal creaked like bones breaking, echoing through the thick fog that shrouded everything. Behind her, the black forest stretched endlessly twisted trees, branches like skeletal fingers, and a silence that weighed more heavily than any scream. The castle loomed ahead like a sleeping creature. Stone towers tore at the gray sky. Time-stained stained glass filtered dead light, and crows caught on the slate roofs. The wind howled through the slits of the Gothic windows, carrying the smell of damp stone, centuries of mold, and something else: burning wax and graveyard dirt. It was perpetual twilight here. The full moon appeared and disappeared between heavy clouds, and the torches flickered on the interior walls, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Alina clutched the small suitcase she carried tightly. Everything that remained of her life fit inside. She was 22 years old. Her brown hair was tied in a low bun, her hands calloused from overwork, and she wore a simple gray cotton dress, nothing particularly remarkable. Her eyes, however, were different, green like ancient emeralds, shining even in the dim light. She didn't know it, but that particular shade of green only existed in one bloodline: the ancient queens who ruled alongside the vampire lords centuries ago. Alina was there because she had no choice. Her family had died in a fire. The debts remained. The contract was the only way out. 3 years of servitude in the castle in exchange for debt forgiveness. Simple. Or so she thought. An elderly butler greeted her at the entrance, pale skin, sunken eyes, mechanical movements. He didn't smile. "Keep your head down. Don't look any vampire in the eye, and you might just survive." Alina swallowed hard, but didn't let fear get the better of her. "I will survive," she whispered to herself. No matter what it takes. The castle wasn't just stone. It was a hierarchy. Noble vampires ruled the upper floors. Human servants lived in the basements. The rules were clear: humans serve, vampires rule. This was the order that kept the clan alive. Any disobedience was punished, any familiarity fatal. And then there was him, Lord Damien, 300 years old. Long black hair falling to his shoulders, eyes that alternated between blood red and gunmetal gray, depending on his mood. He ruled the castle with an iron fist, but he carried a secret. 2 centuries ago, he loved a human queen. She had died in his arms, a victim of her own mortality, and he had sworn never to be attached to another mortal again, until I saw Alina. When she entered the main hall for instructions, Damien stood at the top of the stairs, watching. Something inside him stirred an ancient, visceral recognition, impossible to ignore. Her blood called, her soul echoed. He descended slowly, each step heavy as a sentence. Alina felt his eyes on her before she even saw him. When she finally looked, the world stopped. "You," he said, his voice low and controlled, "shouldn't be here." Alina didn't understand, but something inside her responded, as if she already knew that voice, as if she had died for it before. Alina's first day in the castle was a lesson in silence and shadows. The rules were strict, dictated by the Vampire Counselor group of immortal elders who ruled with an iron fist. Alina was assigned to clean the library and the halls of the East Wing. No eye contact with the vampires. No questions. No curiosity. Survival depended on invisibility. But Alina was never good at being invisible. The library was immense, with shelves soaring to the vaulted ceiling, black marble staircases spiraling between floors, and leather-bound books that seemed centuries old. The smell of old paper and ancient dust filled the air. Alina climbed one of the ladders with the bucket of water and the cleaning cloth, careful but distracted by the sheer size of the place. That's when his foot slipped. The bucket fell, water splashed, and Alina felt her body fall backward. The marble was meters away. The fall would be fatal, but she never touched the ground. A firm hand gripped her arm with supernatural strength. The movement was so quick, Alina didn't even see it. 1 second she was falling, the next, she was standing, held by the wrist. She turned her face and saw Damien. He stood inches from her, his red eyes glowing in the dim light, his breath cool against her face, his touch burned not with heat, but with something deeper. Memories that weren't hers flashed through Elena's mind like lightning. A ballroom, white gowns, a golden crown, and those same eyes gazing at her with devotion. Elena blinked. The images were gone. "Be careful," Damien said, his voice low and controlled. "Death here comes quickly to the careless." Alina yanked her arm away from him with more force than she intended. "I can take care of myself. Sir, I don't need saviors." Damien didn't move. He just watched her, his eyes roaming her face as if reading something written in a forgotten language. Her scent, wildflowers mixed with fresh earth, was impossible to ignore. And her scent, ... that scent he knew but couldn't name. "Interesting," he said, tilting his head slightly. "Most humans tremble in my presence." Alina held his gaze for 3 seconds. Enough for Damien to feel something he hadn't felt in 200 years. Vulnerability. "Maybe I'm not like most people." Damien took a step back, as if her touch had burned more than he'd expected. Without another word, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the sound of the wind rustling through the windows. Alina stood there, her heart pounding. She didn't know why, but she sensed this wouldn't be their last meeting. And something inside her, something very old, whispered, "You already know him. You've always known him." It was on the third night that everything changed. Alina was returning from the kitchen to the servants' quarters when she felt it. A presence, cold, predatory. The hallway was too dark, the torches unlit. That never happened by accident. Before she could scream, an icy hand grabbed her neck and pushed her against the stone wall. Alina saw red eyes glowing in the darkness, not Damien's. They were hungrier, emptier. "You smell different," the noble vampire hissed, bringing his fangs closer to her neck. "Sweeter, older." Alina struggled, but his strength was overwhelming. She was gasping for air. Death was seconds away. That's when Damien appeared. He didn't walk, heroes like a shadow taking shape. In a movement so quick, Alina didn't even see it. Damien snatched the noble vampire from her and threw him against the stained glass window at the end of the hallway. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces. The attacker tried to get up, but Damien was on top of him, his hand gripping his throat, his red eyes now glowing. "She is mine." Damien's voice was hoarse, filled with a suppressed fury that shook the entire castle. The noble vampire gasped, trying to apologize, but Damien wouldn't let go. For a second, Alina thought he was going to kill the attacker right then and there, but he stopped. He let go. The vampire staggered away. Damien turned to Alina, still panting, even without needing to breathe, his eyes returning to gray. He moved closer, but kept his distance. "Are you well?" Alina touched her neck, feeling the cold fingerprints. She was shaking, but not from fear, from confusion. "Why do you protect me? I'm just a servant." Damien looked away, as if the question hurt more than it should. "Because there are things at stake that you don't yet understand. And when you do, I hope you'll forgive me." He disappeared before she could respond. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Alina was in the library, cleaning an old bookshelf, when a sudden dizziness hit her. The world around her spun, and then she saw the same room, but different. Decorated with white flowers, lit candles, music echoing, and a red-eyed man, dressed in noble attire, extending his hand to her. "My queen," he said, his voice smooth as silk. Alina blinked. The vision vanished. She was back in the library, alone, trembling. Damien watched from afar, hidden in the shadows. He recognized the signs, the visions, the memories trying to surface. She was beginning to remember. That night, Damien locked himself in his chambers and opened ancient grimoires, forbidden books on reincarnation, destined souls, bonds that span centuries. He searched for signs, and found them. The queen's soul returns when the clan is in danger. She is born again, but without memories. The Lord must choose, awaken her, and condemn her to mortality, or let her live ignorant but free. Damien slammed the book shut. The choice was impossible. If he awakened her, Alina would die, as the first queen had died, consumed by her own humanity. If she didn't awaken, she would live, but she would never be whole. Meanwhile, Alina continued alternating between normal days and days of fragmented visions. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night calling out a name she didn't recognize. Sometimes she felt a longing for something she'd never experienced, and Damien silently reorganized everything. He moved her shifts to safer areas. He posted discreet guards in the hallways. He maintained constant vigilance, always from afar, always protecting but never getting too close. Because he knew, the closer he got, the faster she would remember, and remembering could kill her. It was on the 12th night that Alina found the book. She was organizing a forgotten shelf in the library when a heavy volume fell at her feet. The cover was black leather, worn with age, with strange symbols engraved in gold. Alina picked it up carefully. When she opened it, the pages were yellowed, fragile as butterfly wings, and covered in runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. "You shouldn't touch that." Alina turned quickly. Damien was standing a few feet away, emerging from the shadows as he always did. But this time there was no irritation in his voice. There was ... curiosity. "Sorry," he fell. Damien approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the book. He took it from her hands but didn't close it. Instead, he sat in one of the leather armchairs beside the unlit fireplace and gestured for her to sit down too. Alina hesitated, but obeyed. Damien opened the book to a specific page. There were detailed drawings, a castle, a ballroom, and a woman wearing a crown. Alina felt her heart race. The woman in the drawing had long hair, eyes that looked green, even in the faded ink, and a serene expression. "This language is older than any human kingdom," Damien said, running his finger across the yellowed page. "Only royal blood can read it without training." "Try it," Alina frowned. "I can't read runes." "Try anyway." She touched the runes with her fingertips. The instant her skin touched the paper, the letters glowed at first faintly, then with increasing intensity. Words began to appear in Alina's mind, as if someone were whispering directly into her head. The vampire queen was born human, but chose eternity at her lord's side. Her blood was pure, her soul immortal. Alina pulled her hand back, her eyes wide. As Damien closed the book slowly, his gaze fixed on her. "Because you were always more than you imagined." The silence hung heavy between them. Alina wanted to ask more, but something held her back. Fear, perhaps, or the feeling that the answer would change everything. Damien stood, walked to the window, and stared at the full moon. His voice was low, thick with ancient pain. 200 years ago, I lost someone. Someone who meant more than clan, more than eternity. She was human. And I loved her, even though I knew it would kill her." Alina felt a tightness in her chest. It wasn't compassion. It was recognition as if she'd heard this story before. What happened to her? "She died in my arms, and I swore never to love again." Damien turned, his eyes meeting hers. There was vulnerability there, something Alina never thought she'd see in a vampire. But sometimes fate doesn't respect oaths. Alina lowered her gaze. The visions, the fragmented memories, the book responding to her touch, it was all beginning to make sense, but at the same time, nothing was. "There are things that happen to me that I can't explain," she whispered. "Visions, dreams. Sometimes I feel like I've lived here before. One day I'll understand." Damien took a step toward her, but stopped. He knew getting too close would hasten her awakening, and awakening meant death. "When you understand," he said, his voice hoarse, "I hope you'll forgive me for what I chose to do, or not do." Alina didn't answer. But when their eyes met, something passed between them. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. It was as if two souls, separated for centuries, had finally met again. It was on the 20th night that Damien brought the rose. He appeared at Alina's door at dusk, holding a single flower. It was no ordinary rose. It was black knot, The deep red that sometimes appears black, but absolute black, as if dyed by the night itself. The petals glowed faintly in the moonlight. Where from? Alina began to ask. From the Forbidden Garden, Damien replied, holding out the flower to her. Flowers that only bloom for royal blood. If you're not who I suspect, it will wither in your hands in minutes. Alina picked up the rose carefully, expecting to feel thorns, but there were none. The flower was soft, cool, and alive. More alive than any plant should be. She held it for a minute, 2-5. The rose didn't wilt. On the contrary, it seemed to glow more brightly. Damien watched silently, his eyes fixed on her. The confirmation he feared and longed for was there, in the palm of Alina's hand. What does that mean? She whispered. That you were never just a servant. Before she could respond, Damien turned and left, leaving Alina alone with the black rose that pulsed like a living heart. That same night, Damien invited her for a walk. The castle gardens were vast, surrounded by high walls, and bathed in the silvery light of a full moon. Black roses grew in orderly beds, and cypress trees cast long shadows over the stone paths. The air was chilly, but not uncomfortable. Alina walked beside Damien in silence, the two of them crossing a stone bridge over a dark lake where ghostly swans swam. It was there, in the middle of the bridge, that their hands touched. It wasn't intentional. Damien reached the railing at the same time Alina did. Their fingers touched for a second and it was as if the world stopped. Alina felt a rush of heat up her arm. It wasn't physical desire, it was recognition. It was as if that hand had held hers 1,000 times before. She pulled her hand away quickly, not out of fear of him, but out of fear of what she was feeling, of the gulf that lay between them, mortality and mortality, lord and servant, vampire and human. Damien stopped, turned to her, and for the first time since they'd met, there was complete vulnerability in his eyes. If I could, I would free you from this life. I would give you everything you deserve. Alina shook her head, her voice trembling. Then tell me the truth. Why do you look at me like you know me from another life? Damien closed his eyes, as if the question physically hurt. Because I know you. Or rather, I knew someone like you. Someone who had the same eyes, the same smile, the same soul, and I lost her. Alina stepped forward. And you think I'm her? Damien opened his eyes, and there were tears of blood threatening to fall. I know you are. The silence between them was deafening. Alina wanted to deny it, wanted to run away, but she couldn't. Because deep down, she knew it too. The visions, the memories, the unfading rose, everything pointed to an impossible truth. If I'm her, Alina whispered, what happens to me? Damien looked away. You die. Like she died. Because waking up completely means carrying the weight of two lives in a body that can only hold one. It was on the night of the blood moon that everything came to light. Alina stood in the throne room, a place she had avoided since arriving at the castle. The walls were covered in ancient tapestries, and in the center stood a black stone throne inlaid with rubies. The moon shone through the stained glass windows, tinting everything red. Suddenly, Alina felt as if the ground disappeared beneath her feet. The vision came complete this time. Not fragments, not flashes. Etit saw all. She was wearing a white dress, a golden crown in her hair. Damien stood beside her, smiling, something Alina had never seen him do before. They were celebrating their union, their promised eternity. And then the betrayal. A council vampire, jealous, thrusting a silver dagger into her heart, blood dripping, Damien screaming her name, she falling, and before dying, whispering, I'll come back. I always come back. Alina came back to reality with a scream. Her legs gave way. She fell to the marble floor, trembling, tears streaming down her face. Damien appeared within seconds, scooping her up in his arms before she could hit her head. He carried her to his private quarters, a place no human had ever entered. He placed her carefully on the bed, his eyes filled with despair. Alina, ... double quotes. I saw it all, she whispered, her voice hoarse. I was her queen. Damien closed his eyes, as if hearing that was a stab. And now you are mortal. Your body cannot handle the transformation. If I transform you, you may not survive. If I keep you human, you will grow old and die. I am caught between losing you again or killing you trying to save you. Elena cupped his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. So tell me, is there a way? Damien hesitated. Then he stood and walked to a bookshelf hidden behind a secret panel. He pulled out an ancient grimoire, bound in leather and iron. He opened it to a page marked with dried blood. There's a ritual, he said, his voice low. Safe transformation. But it requires sacrifice. I'd have to give up some of my vampiric power to stabilize the transformation. I'd become weaker, vulnerable, maybe even mortal over time. Elena stood up, still shaky, but determined. No, I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. Damien stepped forward, his eyes shining with an intensity she'd never seen before. Then what do you propose? That I watch you grow old and die while I remain eternal. That I lose you for the third time. The first was when they killed you. The second was when you were born without memories. This would be the third. Elena took a deep breath. The decision was impossible. But deep down, she already knew what she wanted. Take me to the tower. Now. Damien led her to the top of the castle's tallest tower. The blood moon shone brightly in the sky, dyeing everything red. The wind howled, but neither of them felt the cold. Elena turned to Damien, her green eyes glowing in the crimson light. I want to try. I want the transformation. But on one condition, you don't give up anything. If I die, it was my choice. If I survive, we fight together. Damien shook his head. I can't risk losing you again. Elena stepped forward, placing her hand on his chest where a still heart had rested for centuries. Then kiss me, and then change me, because I choose you, in all lives, past, present, and those to come. Damien pulled her tightly to him, and their lips met beneath the blood moon. The kiss was deep, desperate, knowing it might be his last. When they pulled away, Damien whispered against her forehead, I choose you. I have always chosen you. In every life, Elena smiled, tears in her eyes. Then transform me. And this time, we fight together. 6 months later, the castle breathed differently. The queen had returned not as a shadow of the past, but as renewed strength. The clan bowed not out of fear, but out of regained loyalty. Elena's transformation had been successful. She woke 3 days after the ritual, in Damien's chambers, her eyes now red and her heart stopped, but she wasn't dead. She was more alive than ever. The complete memories of her past life came flooding back, every face, every name, every betrayal. She was Elena, but she was also the queen who had been murdered 200 years ago. The two souls merged into one. Damien, meanwhile, had temporarily weakened. The ritual had sapped some of his power, as promised. For weeks, he could barely stand, vulnerable for the first time in centuries. But Elena remained by his side, feeding him her own newly transformed blood, caring for him as he had cared for her. And little by little, Damien regained his strength. Not all of it, but enough. And he discovered he didn't need all the power in the world when he had her by his side. The first thing Elena did as queen was to reform the clan. He convened the Vampire Council and, in front of everyone, decreed new laws. Humans would be treated with dignity. Servants would have rights. The abusive hierarchy that had fueled the clan for centuries would be dismantled. Anyone who disagreed could leave. Most accepted. Some resisted. Among those who resisted was the noble vampire who had attempted to attack Elena months earlier. He was publicly tried in the throne room, before the entire court. Elena, now seated on the throne next to Damien, pronounced the sentence in a firm voice. Exile. You do not deserve destruction. You deserve to live forever alone, far from the clan you betrayed. The vampire was escorted out of the castle, banished forever. Then came the traitors of the old court, those who still lived, hidden in the shadows, hoping the queen would never return. One by one, they were brought before her. Elena recognized them. She remembered each face, each metaphorical stab wound before the literal one. But instead of bloody revenge, she chose measured justice. Some were exiled. Others were placed in eternal community service, caring for the humans they so despised. The lesson wasn't death, it was humility. And there was also poetic justice. The elderly butler, who had welcomed Alina on her first day, the one who had instructed her to keep her head down, was elevated to an honored position in the new court, Queen's Counselor. He wept tears of blood as he accepted, something he hadn't done in decades. The change wasn't instantaneous, but it was real. The castle that once reeked of fear now reeked of hope. Humans and vampires coexisted not as predator and prey, but as careful, respectful allies. And at the top of the tallest tower, every night, Damien and Alina would sit together, looking at the moon. Was it worth it? She asked one of those nights, her head resting on his shoulder. Damien wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. Every second, every sacrifice, every lifetime I waited to find you again. Alina smiled, the canines now visible, but the smile still hers. Then let's not waste any more time, and they didn't waste it. In that castle where death always seemed like fate and never a choice, a mortal servant taught the immortal court to remember what truly matters. Love that transcends time, loyalty that endures betrayal, and the truth that some souls are destined to find each other, no matter how many lifetimes they must endure. What was servitude became kingship. What was mortality became eternity. And love, at last, won.